How are we ever supposed to fix this?
Give me one more shot. Let's go back to the Caribbean. You okay?
Yeah, just taking it all in. I've missed this.
Welcome! What do you say we get on our way, huh? By the way, guys, I took the liberty of making a reservation for you at a nice restaurant. Very romantic.
Sounds great.
On vacation? Literally just started. Joey, this is Michael.
What is it you do again, Michael?
I see myself as a life coach.
But what I'm asking...
Jesus Christ, Zoe. You stop grilling the man with all your questions.
Don't talk to me like that.
Apologize to Zoe now. This is the final time I'll ask you. Apologize.
Did you see what that guy did to the doorman? Please tell me that's not who I think it is.
What do you want? To educate Jason. Go on!
Run! Just kill me.
Look what you've done.
She thought she'd come all this way out here to kill us or something.
No. Eventually, yes, but we've got all day first.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Pop Culture Corner. It has been a little bit of time since I've done a show. Been going through the transition back into the office, so it's been taking a lot of my time, and then I don't have time for other things. So I've been missing you guys, and what a good way to come back and get back into things than with a couple of good people and a good conversation. Before we get into that, guys, make sure to smash that like button as hard as you can. Share the show on social media and subscribe, become a member, all that jazz. We can go through it later. But without further ado, we're going to bring in Black Ops. Everybody knows Black Ops. He's been here a lot lately.
Hi.
So how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good.
All right. So I know, so there's a reason I asked you to tag along, right? So you're a big gamer fan. And for me, I really just started getting into playing video games, like as a way to, I don't know, kind of same thing I do with movies, right? Like kind of like
Relax.
escape the world
Yeah.
around me. But the one thing I found was that Call of Duty gives me the most anxiety that I've ever had, ever. Like I'll play the Batman game, like I'll run through it with Batman, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm kicking ass. And then I'll play Call of Duty, and I don't know why I broke the window. So it's really weird what video games do.
It's a unique game in the sphere of overall gaming, and it's widely popular for many different reasons.
Right. And with that being said, who better to talk to about all of this, movies, video games, than someone who does it for a living? Welcome, Mr. Chad, Michael Collins. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good, gentlemen. Happy day to you both. Good to be back on
Sunday.
the Pop Culture Corner.
Yeah, man. So do you like to be called Alex, Brandon, or just Chad? Call sign. What is it? What's the call sign?
Buyer's choice, quite honestly, Chad.
Okay.
We can go with the birth certificate version of things. We can go with the Call of Duty Modern Warfare universe version of things, the Sniper verse, whatever you want. I respond to them all.
With that, so I was talking to Black Ops earlier, and I was thinking, a question I often have for people is when you get into these roles, right? These iconic roles, right? Where now you are remembered or you are looked at and they immediately think of, right? Known for. So for you, that is a lot of it is Alex and what call sign is the Echo 3-1, I believe it is.
3-1.
Right. So, I mean, you still play video games, you stream. Is there any like loss in the magic when you know what's behind the camera? You know how it's done. Like you've seen The Wizard.
Yeah, that's a great question. What is it like to have the Wizard of Oz throw back the curtain and
Right.
show you the guts of things, right, and how they work? For me, there isn't, because I've been a gamer my whole life, and that started with Atari and the twilight years of Atari, all the way to
Oh, man,
8-bit,
yeah.
Nintendo, and then 16-bit, and all the way up through. So I've always been fascinated and adored video games. So to be a part of a video game, and then to see what that filming process was like, and then to see what you get on the screen,
Right.
is amazing for me. And I just have so much appreciation for all that goes into it. So it hasn't ruined my experience at all. In fact, it's encouraged me to try different things on for size.
Right.
I've always been a campaign guy in terms of the Call of Duty universe, but since my character was dropped into multiplayer Warzone stuff like this, I started doing that for the first time ever in a first-person shooter, and I had a whole new level of appreciation for why people love the Call of Duty franchises and the game in general.
Is it weird like playing yourself in a game? Like I could not really actually, because I used to create characters in like the wrestling game that were
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean? So I guess it's kind of similar to that. It's just
I mean, look, it's only weird when the Alex carcasses and the corpses just pile up on the battlefield. Then it starts to get a little weird. Otherwise, it's just this, and the gun out in front of you. So I'm not,
Right.
staring at my ugly mug the entire time. So it's just, when he gets blown up by an airstrike and you see like he looks like a tumbleweed flying through
Right.
the air and then the body hits the ground. You're like, oh, that's a little disturbing. I don't
That's
think
what
my
that
mom
would
be
look
down with
like.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that answered a lot of questions. Thank you. But yeah, no. So Call of Duty gives me a lot of anxiety. So I've been finding that out. Finding that out
Same.
recently. And not it's
Is it the multiplayer part, or is it like the
Yes.
story mode?
Yes.
Yeah.
because I suck and I'm terrible and like I want to be
I can
better
relate.
and I think I'm good, and I think that's the problem is I think I'm good. So yeah,
It's easy to get an exaggerated sense of self and have your ego really stroked when you pull off a kill or two, and then you die 9 times in a row. And
Right.
That's a hard fall back to reality, back down to earth in those sweaty lobbies. So trust me, I've been there. I've been doing that for 2 years, thinking that like, okay, I'm pretty good at this game, and then just absolutely getting rickrolled the very next match. So it keeps you humble.
Do you ever troll? Not troll. I shouldn't say. I hate that word. But do you ever just play Call of Duty and just go in there and like these people don't know who there's? Can you still talk to people like through the headset? Like
voice
right?
chat.
So do you ever just like they just don't know that they're playing with the guy that starred in it? It's pretty cool.
I always I turn off the kill cams and everything else. I turn off the battle chatter, from other players around the world, because I know it can be a little toxic
Right.
at times, and I probably just have a laugh. But it's extra salt in the wounds when you get absolutely destroyed, and then the other player from around the world like just talks smack to you. So I only keep it on with my friends. I typically only play with my friends. So we keep it clean and we have a lot of fun there. And I'm not interested in getting called out and roasted on top of getting killed mercilessly. So
and
I
here's
save myself grief.
Yeah, and here's the kicker: the kid from around the world's 11.
Yeah, and that's
that's the real kicker.
Yeah,
but
that's pain. That's pain.
There's becoming less of a line when it comes to. So you obviously did the motion capture for Alex and the voiceover. How we've talked to several people who've done like voiceovers. Ray Porter's a great example, good friend. And the scripts, like the things that the amount of lines you have to say for a video game character, right? How many situations you're in? How long did it take to do all that? Like to film all the voice, like because you have to make. Do you have to make all the noises and do all the variations?
Yeah, it's a process, and the game I did, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, the reboot that Infinity Ward did, it was about 18 months. We filmed, for a good solid week, like once a month for like 18 months. The great majority of that with the cast I worked with, Captain Price, Barry Sloan, and Elliot Knight, who played Gaz, and
Right.
Claudia Dumit, wonderful actress who played Faro. You know, we were doing those cinematic cutscenes that you see mostly in the campaign. You know, the mission intros, the mission outros, the cutscenes in between that turned out so beautifully. And then,
Right.
of course, when they dropped Alex back into the war zone in season 3, I did that little cinematic cutscene as well with the mocap performance. And then, of course, you know, then we had to do thousands of lines of voiceover for multiplayer and battle chatter and call outs and getting blown up
Right.
by a you know airstrike or a cluster strike and choking on a gas grenade and stuff like that. So it was a full
Fun.
we covered all the bases, because you're right, the video game is, and I think that's why people love these games and just video games in general. It's an interactive experience. You have agency. Where do
Yes.
you want to send your character? What do you want to do?
What are the
And what is the
bounds?
repercussions and the
Yeah.
consequence? So it's, I grew up with books called Choose Your Own Adventure in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
And you kind of come to the fork in the road in your adventure. It's like, do you go inside the cave or do you continue up the mountain? And
Right.
sometimes you pick the wrong thing, because inside the cave is a nest full of vipers and you're dead. So the kind of video games are like that. There's agency
Right.
there, there's interactivity there, which makes it really fun. But as an actor, you got to cover all your bases. You got to cover the fact that they might wander off here, or they might get themselves in that situation. So what are the voice lines? What is the player action for that?
Right. That thank you. I couldn't imagine, like, the scripts must be just like piles of paper. Like, all right, just say that today. Make sure we get all of it done. But so you were born and raised in upstate New York, and
Mm-hmm.
you began your career as a publicist, as I read, I believe. So
Yeah.
how did you transition? So how did it all get started? What brought you into acting in general
Man,
as a
I'm the
career?
only entertainment publicist turned actor that I know. It's been a very weird, transition when you just look at those two titles next
Like
to
on
each
the
other. But
on paper, I'm
yeah,
like, where did the jump? Like, what happened?
but it
Uh,
makes sense, because I wasn't a publicist, in New York City doing corporate. I was an
right.
entertainment publicist, so I was working with actors. I was working with TV actors, film actors, Las Vegas entertainers, singers, stuff like this. So I was plugged into the entertainment industry. The studios, the networks,
Yeah.
the agents, the managers, the whole scene. And I did that for 13 years. I was a journalism major coming out of college, so I came right to LA and worked as an assistant to a publicist. We got into a little bit of talent management. I started to, dip my toe in the water with some acting classes after never having done it a day in my life. So I kind of came up through the business end of things, and I always had so much fun acting, and I loved it so much that I was trying to do acting and the PR thing full time. 2 full-time gigs to just keep elevating my acting career to the point where I could walk away from the office stuff. So
Exactly.
like 6-7 years ago, I was able to accomplish that,
Right.
and just kind of went 100% into the acting stuff. And I'm grateful I made that decision. But all those years spent as a publicist really prepared me for the business side of this industry, which is just wacky. So the
Right.
more the better chance you have to set yourself up for success. So I'm grateful for the experience. And yeah, here we are now. Journalism degree, throw it out the window.
It's so, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up. It's because it parallels. Because I was actually just talking to Black Ops earlier about his college, and like what the choices we make and how they lead to where we are now. Right. I made some decisions that I wasn't so proud of at that age in college, and all of it led me to here. So I think we're all grateful that you made the jump from doing that to doing this, because I think you're much better at it.
Hey, I could have been the best publicist in the world. You would have
Well,
never known.
yeah, you know what I mean.
I was rife with
Yeah,
potential.
you know what I
I
mean.
was
You know
being
what I
groomed
mean.
for great things.
Yes,
I'm
you know what.
kidding.
Yeah.
No, it's
No,
it's
I'm
just
very
so much more
grateful.
satisfying. I mean, look, you put in 13 years in an office setting, and I'm like, there's a part of you that just screams to get out, and that was
Right.
me. Not that I wasn't grateful or like my coworkers or anything like that. It was just, I'm living in LA. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the country, and to have a beautiful 85-degree day and then be sitting 9-10 hours under fluorescent lights and at a desk
Yeah, drive you
in
crazy.
front of a computer screen, you're like, what am I doing?
Right.
So
Right.
acting is fantastic because it scratches the itch. You get to travel the world if you're lucky enough to do that. You get to meet people and see amazing things and try new roles on for size. And variety is the spice of life, and sometimes it's feast, sometimes it's famine. in between the acting gigs because you're literally a gun for hire, and you're out hustling for that very next job always, and you can never
Always.
stop. So you kind of give up that security, but you replace it, in my mind, with adventure. And I said, well, I've already done the security thing, and it's fine, and I can always go back to the security thing. But let me just dive deep into the adventure part of my life. So far so good. We're still here. We're still doing it, and I haven't had to crawl back to an office yet. So something's working out.
Yeah, and you've done a lot coming out in 2022. A lot came out in 2021. So you've had Assailant. I was actually just gonna start that AMC Shutter series, Creep Show. I mean, you've done a lot. What out of the roles that you've had so far, right? Out of all the roles that you've had so far, is there a character or a role that really took you on and challenged you to the edge, to the brink, and pushed you?
I mean, quite honestly, anytime you do indie filmmaking, look, nobody does indie filmmaking to get rich, but it's an amazing collaborative experience. Everyone's in it for the right reasons. It's pure passion, and it's a community that comes together to create a miracle with no money. So there's been some indie films that I've played on that have been absolutely bonkers in terms of the hours and the workloads and stuff like that. And those will always test you, but you become baptized by fire when you get paid nothing and you don't sleep for 2 straight weeks,
Right.
16-hour days, 6 days a week. And then you come out the back end of that and you're like, I'm glad I did that because I can literally handle anything. It's just
Right.
like Michael Bay, you need 6 months to make a movie. Like we just did this in 9 days, it's just like I can handle your stuff, Michael Bay. It's not a problem.
Well, his is full
Dude,
of gravel and explosion, so I understand.
That's
Right.
what's really ironic though is you've hit both things that we talked about before you came. I literally brought up
that's
Michael Bay
crazy.
and the new ambulance movie that he's got, and how I'd rather go watch that than Morbius again. But so Hollywood's been a buzz lately. I'd just like to get your take on something. Everything that happened at the Oscars. Do you think this shines a negative light?
I mean, look, Hollywood is there's no place in the world like Hollywood. And I can say that because I've lived here for double-digit years that I've lost count of at this point. But, there's so much about Hollywood and how progressive it is. And it moves us forward, as a culture, in terms of recognition and equity and fairness and visibility for underrepresented people. But at the same time, you can get kind of caught, smelling your own farts a little bit, I think. And it's also become, it's just tricky because, when you start to just, segment people into groups, you stop looking at people as individuals, and individuals are flawed. We're human beings. You talked about, like earlier, you said, there's things I did in college that I wasn't proud of. Well, we've all been there and we've all made mistakes. And, do we have the grace to recognize our mistakes and improve? Because if we didn't, we'd all be, hot garbage people. And, where's the ability to have the grace and the forgiveness to someone that genuinely wants to learn and improve and apply that, and it's hard because, there can be with the Twitterverse and everything else and social media, everybody just popping off their opinions without thinking about the repercussions. It's like, you don't give a human being a chance to grow. And we've seen it happen so many times, James Gunn, a 10-year-old tweet,
Right.
and now we're going to take your career away. And it's like,
Yep.
guys, he's already made amends, and he's a talented,
That's a great
creative
point.
guy and who does so good by so many people. Why are we destroying his reputation? Why are we taking something away from him from a mistake he's acknowledged 10 years ago?
And who
Where's the
gave us,
grace? Can we
who
allow
gave
him
us-
to
yeah.
grow?
who
Can
gave us
we
that
allow him
power?
to keep, adding value to the world and enrich the world? Because that guy is, from what I've heard, kindness personified. He gives
Yeah.
so many people a chance. He's so wonderful. He did make a mistake, but he owned it back then.
Right.
And that's the
Yeah.
problem. Is there's a lot of punishment, in Hollywood to people who make mistakes, as if
Doesn't-
just because you're a celebrity, you've been in movies, you're not allowed to make mistakes. You're not.
Yeah,
allowed
you're held
grow
to a
into
different
human being.
standard.
Yeah, and that's where it becomes tricky, because everybody wants to pile on and say, shame on you. and whatever. But when you stop looking at the individuals, like what's going on with him?
Right.
Is there something going on? Does he need
Yeah,
help?
personal life.
That's a cry for help.
It's-
That's not necessarily a desperate grab for attention. That's a cry for help. So how can we support? And how can we forgive and have a little grace to let someone grow and to own their mistakes and to dedicate themselves to doing better? So that's where it gets tricky. That's why I don't have much of opinion about that. But I look at the individuals and I'm just kind of like, you hope the best for them and you hope they're getting the help they need. And it's made that much harder by people piling on so quickly all the time. And we've seen it happen so much in the last few years. And it can be a dangerous thing in the other direction. Keeping people accountable, that's a good thing. It can be dangerous then when you said, well, you're never going to be forgiven. And now we'll take everything from you.
It's that cancel culture that's been grooming on social media. That's the whole thing with this. And Twitter obviously had a lot of opinions regarding the Oscar stuff, and it's Twitter, so you see everything, and
it is. And that's the problem is everybody has a platform now, which I think is a wonderful thing. The fact that someone can have a platform to put something amazing out in the world, or help people out in the world, or make people aware of certain things. I think that's a wonderful thing. It can also be a very destructive tool, and I think a lot of people don't think before they type. They don't know, and that's why you see 10-year-old tweets coming back to haunt people. In the same way that trolls, you can't take that back. Trolls, if you were going to pile on and you were going to judge and you weren't going to think about that sort of stuff, it's like, well, now the trolls will troll you, and it becomes a vicious cycle that you can't ever get away from. And it's just like, everybody just step back, take a breath, think about things before you type and put it out there, and have it permanently live on the internet. And we might be a better place for it if we could do that, but we'll see.
That's what I've been doing lately. Is I've stepped back. I've just taken. I took a couple weeks as I transitioned because I've been working from home for 2 years, and finally like going back into the office, transitioning back into that, and I've taken a step back and I look in and all like the stuff on social media. I'm like, how do you guys have the time to sit here and argue about this? Like, because Twitter can be a great thing. Right? The social media, like you said, I wrote an article about this too that said when you give everyone a platform, you give everyone a platform.
Yeah,
that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
So
no one has to earn it, right?
You just spelled it out.
You don't have to check any boxes. There is no application process.
Nope.
Everyone
agree with terms and service, and that's it.
Yeah, man. And like for like the Snyder Cut, I'm sure you've seen some of it, right? Just being as a personality, the stuff with DC, right, and like the division amongst the fans. I think that's where things get really dicey because it's like breeding a toxic environment, and that's me speaking for someone who's been inside of it, right? Like contributed towards it, pushed buttons and done things, just to get people riled up, and I know I'm guilty of it. At least I was. And it's hard.
Well, it's if you think of the overall thing, really, and this is, I think perspective goes out the window real quick with a lot of this stuff. It's just kind of like, okay, Star Wars fans, you hate this one, but you love that one.
Right.
Now you are warring with each other as you argue over what's the best and who's destroying the franchise and who has resuscitated it and whatever. It's like no one ever steps back and think that like life is so good. And we are so spoiled for Star Wars movies that we get to fight with each other on Twitter about it.
Isn't that?
It's pretty good. That's a pretty
an amazing time to be alive.
Yeah, if that's the extent of your problems, things are going pretty well.
Pretty well, man.
It's just that context and that perspective that people lose so quickly because they're so prone to outrage and judgment. I was like, everyone, slow your roll. Look at your life. There was a gap where for decades there wasn't a Star Wars anything. It's just like, and now you want to,
now you have television shows,
every new movie and every new show and whatever. It's like, guys, remember that time where you had nothing and you had to rewatch the old ones over and over again? It's like, let's have a little gratitude. Let's have a little appreciation and just trust that everyone is doing their best, whether you're J.J. Abrams or you're an indie filmmaker trying to put together a movie on a no budget. No one is setting out to make a bad product. Like no one is setting out to put a disaster in your laps. Like everyone's doing their best with what they have. And, you'd like to see a little bit more grace with that sort of stuff. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But you know, you put out art in the world and it gets judged. You know, and
Right.
sometimes it gets judged harshly and unfairly. But you know, that's the artist's plight, I suppose. But you know, everyone forgets that it's also show business. Like there's a business side to this whole thing that people want to never consider at all. And I'm like, well, you know, Warner Brothers isn't here to lose money and go bankrupt. You know, they're it's business,
Exactly.
you know, and sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it bad, but overall we're served because they give us stuff we get to consume when we choose. And we're
And,
fortunate to have that.
and that, you know, I've asked this question to multiple people before, is like, should the executives and stuff, like you brought up Warner Brothers, whether it's Marvel, Warner Brothers, Legendary, should the people making the movies or the executives, should they have a passion for it as well? Probably, right? Probably. You should probably like Lord of the Rings if you're setting out to make a Lord of the Rings film, right? So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of duty to it, and I do understand why people get frustrated with those in charge when things don't go their way. But you know, the way that people handle things nowadays is, you know, just go on social media, blast you, and make you look like it's like, ha, gotcha. Everything's gotcha.
Yeah.
Scoops, gotcha, right? Leaks, everything. The like you communication is fundamentally changing, and we have to be very careful. So I mean, I like that someone who, like you, has done Call of Duty, has been in movies, still understands that, and that it's good to know. It's good to hear. So,
Well, it's you know, yeah, as with anything, and not to rip off Spider-Man, but it's like you know, great power comes great responsibility. I mean, people might not think that they have power, but social media gives you the power to make someone's day or to
yeah,
ruin it. And, you know, would you walk into a grocery store? Would you pass somebody on the street and just abuse that power to either make their day great or make their day terrible? And it's just, you know, so it's everyone gets to hide behind computer screens and have all sorts of keyboard courage when they want to be nasty, but they just wouldn't do this in real life, you
yeah,
know, and that's the kind of soulless bridge that we're crossing with social media is that like no one's really accountable. If things go really bad, you just delete your account and make a new one, or you hide
yeah,
behind a fake everything,
right,
and there's no repercussions. It's the Wild West, right? Before the marshals came in. So, you know, it's a very, very tricky thing. I focus on the good and the positive, and I try to put as much good out there. I control what I can control. I'm very, you know, I have very specific boundaries of what and why and how I use social media, you know, in this way. And I don't get involved in debates and stuff like this and whatever. It's just like, you know, one on one, when there can be a human being, there can be empathy, there can be wanting to understand each other's side of things. I'll do that one on one. I won't do it over the, you know, internet and invite the court of public opinions to vilify me, crucify me, or tell me I'm the best because of one opinion about something. Like, I don't need any of it.
yeah,
And I think that if you really do want to understand and you really want to appreciate, you want to grow as a human being and learn as much as possible, there's something to be said for, you know, good old fashioned, you know, one-on-one communication, or, you know, in a more intimate setting, you know, where there can be the empathy and the openness and the compassion and the wanting to
right.
learn or be educated or to hear something different than what you might believe. So, you know, social media all at once makes it better, and it all at once makes it worse. You know, it just magnifies everything so that we're
Yeah,
capable of as humans.
yeah. And so I think Black Ops has a couple questions. I know we
Yeah.
have a limited time, so I want to make sure he gets his little run.
Yeah.
So, speaking of all that, you know, criticism, right? Bringing it back to that. Do you, like, for Call of Duty, right? I'm assuming a lot of people tell you how the character should be, right? Or they tell you, like, do you take criticism well? Like, do you take that on? Because it can be hard for me because I read the comments and stuff, right? And some of them are helpful, but some of them are just mean. And like, but I take what I can from it, right? And then improve things here and there. And I'm sure you do that in your work, right? Like if something's not feeling right, you assess it and try to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, look, constructive criticism is great if you're really interested in learning and growing, um, which I very much am. Everything I read, everything that I'm open to is about improving in life, improving my life experience. So I'm very open to that. And of course, there's a gentle way to go about that, and a very cruel way to go about that. But they've left Alex alone. Everyone seems to universally dig Alex. He's cool. He's all right. They're glad that he's back. And,
well, yeah, he survived an explosion and lost a leg. Yeah. The man's like Michael Myers. You don't want to mess with that guy.
What's not to like, So I'm pretty fortunate there. But look, I stream Call of Duty. I love to just be able to play with fans around the world and have some fun in the game that I think is so much fun. But there's definitely you can't help unsee the criticisms of the Call of Duty games. It's like they're a beast, and every single one does so well, and they sell tens of millions of copies and everybody comes back and plays every single year. But there's a lot of griping and a lot of moaning, and I get it. It's not always going to be perfect, but overall, it's the same Star Wars analogy I drew. It's like, would you rather not have a Call of Duty game every year, or will you be patient and have enough grace to deal with the bugs and the nerfs and the overpower this and whatever else, and just get to enjoy in general? So it's always a kind of chicken or the egg type of question. But in terms of me and my career and the acting stuff, it's like Assailant just came out, and this is a film I starred in with Casper Van Dien and Jeff Fahey and Poppy Delevingne. It just came out. It's a suspense thriller with a lot of action. It's out on Redbox and on demand and everything else too. And I've read a couple of reviews just because they were passed right in front of me and I couldn't unsee them. I don't really have much use for them because I feel like a lot of people who review films, they don't have some sort of criteria that they'll judge a $500,000 movie with against a $50 million movie with. It's like they use the same criteria.
The same grading curve.
They don't know what a miracle it is to create a $500,000 movie, how so many amazing things have to come. They don't know any of the circumstances. And so you can't make excuses. You're putting art out there, but at the same time,
they judge everything on the same scale,
like that. And I was like, well, if we had access to another $5 million, we could have put all the T-Rexes in the world in there, stuff like that. So, I don't have much use for that because it's a very subjective judgment, and most of them tend to be kind. But I just kind of laugh off the ones that are not, because I'm like, well, you went into this movie looking for things that are wrong. Of course, your review is not going to be favorable. You found things that are wrong or that you didn't like, and now you want to let the world know as some sort of responsible critic. I have no idea.
And let's be honest.
Whatever. I know how hard it is to make movies and TV shows, so I'm very not critical of anything because I know there's always best intentions and people always want to put something out there that they're proud of and that they can enjoy. And there's so many moving parts, and sometimes things fall short. An NFL football team doesn't, suit up their 53 guys every year expecting to go 2-14 or 50 now. It's like they intended to win, and everybody's blood, sweat, and tears are on the field every single Sunday. They didn't mean to let the fans down. They didn't mean to have a losing record. They didn't mean to finish last. So I have a lot of grace for it because I know how hard it is. And, I'm always welcome to constructive criticism, but, the subjective criticism that doesn't serve anyone or anything just kind of makes me laugh.
Yeah. And that's something that I would say the Call of Duty community has for a various amount of games. But you mentioned how, fans in the yearly cycle that these games come out on and how they have so much pre-planning to produce these games every year. My question is, with the recent criticism, I guess, for Call of Duty Vanguard compared to obviously the previous 2 installments of the franchise, do you think it would be more beneficial for the developers and also the consumers to go on a more like a bi-yearly cycle? So every other year there's a new game coming out, kind of giving these games like, for say, Vanguard more time to grow and have more DLC. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's, I think Modern Warfare, the reboot, the game that I was in, it's like, we had the advantage of that being a really popular trilogy back in the day. And, what we strove for in that game is it's gritty realism. It's set in the present day with modern weapons and modern technology and modern, storylines and stuff like that. And I think that, that's almost no one has a problem with that, right? But when you get more specific, when you're talking the 80s in Russia and Cold War, right. Okay, that's a bit of more specific content. And now you're talking about World War II. Well, maybe that's for everyone. Maybe that's not. Maybe, people are just not into the history and the old school guns and stuff like that too. So, what they're trying to do is provide some variety. And I can certainly appreciate that. I remember when I first got hired for Modern Warfare, I know that Taylor Kurosaki, our director, and Infinity Ward did, I think it was called Infinite Warfare, and it was set in the future,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
I
and so it
remember that
involved,
one.
and I was like, this is a really effing cool game. But then I read later that it got torn apart and it didn't do as well commercial. I'm like, well, they took a chance on doing something different. And
Right.
sometimes it's going to work really well, and sometimes it's not. It doesn't mean it's a
Yeah.
bad game. But I think they've really hit the jackpot with the Warzone stuff. I think that's great. And what I've been
Oh
reading is
yeah.
that that's the new direction they're leaning in, and everything else will now support this, 800-pound gorilla that is Warzone that everybody seems to love so much. So
Yes,
maybe that's the
100,
new way to adapt and stay ahead of the curve and keep the players happy,
100.
and to support the battle royale thing, because I know I love playing it. I have a
It's like
blast.
100 million. Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of players. The
I've been
Warzone.
playing it. Yeah, I've been playing it since it came out because I know it was at the start of COVID when it came out, which I think is you couldn't pick a better time for that to release. And it obviously originally supported just the game you were in, and now it's grown into this massive
Yeah,
IP
100 million
and
players.
potentially talking about a complete standalone Warzone 2 sequel, which is something that's maybe in the works that people have been saying on Twitter but then again, it's Twitter. But obviously with it being out for 2 years and obviously 2 other games being adapted and mixed into Warzone, how do you feel about the current state of Modern Warfare? And because of course Warzone is kind of a part of that, how do you feel that Modern Warfare is still up there in popularity compared to the 2 or new games that came out?
I mean, I love to see it, and like I said, we had the advantage
A
of
guilty
taking some
pleasure.
old characters, and then also throwing some new characters in there. We also had the advantage of a pandemic, and then we had the advantage of Warzone, to keep things going. So we had a lot of advantages that I feel like maybe the other games didn't have. And on top of that, they were very specific in what they did, and the time frames and the time periods and the content available. But I mean, look, Black Ops Cold War, they made that game in the middle of a pandemic. I blows my, how do you even do that?
And
You
it
know,
looks
like I
amazing.
went to a soundstage
awesome.
and put on the full mocap
Yeah,
outfit and got rigged up with the mic and the face cam and everything else. And that's what I did for a year and a half. I read that they're sending mocap suits to actors' homes and trying to direct them over the phone or over a
Zoom?
Zoom call. Like, how do you even do that?
What?
That's insane. So it's a feat that they pulled it off. But again, did the critics care? The critics just see Call of Duty. So what? It's in the middle of a pandemic. We expect better. The game costs what it costs, and it's not up to my standards. So I'm going to rip it apart. And I'm like, well, everyone did their best against impossible odds. So to me, that's an incredible achievement. But it didn't do as well with maybe, some of the players and stuff. But because they're the ones who have to spend $60, right? So they don't want excuses.
Or 70
so I
with
get their
next gen.
side. Fair enough, right?
Yeah.
So, real quick, I don't mean to interrupt, but so the volume is doing crazy things for film, and I'm really interested in because the gaming world and the film world seem to they're clashing and things are overlapping, right? Is there any difference in how you approached Alex to say how you approach a film? Because the lines are being blurred a lot lately.
Mhm.
Right, the Mandalorian, right? Half of its effects come from a video game engine or
Yeah.
like a video game developed. I don't know how to say it because I don't really understand it, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean the way technology moves is incredible. I just how can you keep up with it? It's amazing, and it's just blending together more and more and more. Um, I mean, approaching these things was very different. How I approached the Modern Warfare game and being in the full performance capture. It's just very, very different because you're working on a blank soundstage, hopefully with your other actors, sometimes not. And,
Right.
You've got Apple boxes and PVC pipings to represent actual things that will be in the final product, like a door
Right.
frame or a tank or a chopper. And so it's a really playing your imagination thing. And you have to be aware that there is literally a camera right here picking up a extreme close up all the time.
Right.
And there's cameras all around you, like to the
Right.
tunes of like 75 to 100, picking up every movement you make 75 degrees. So it's like film in that you always have a big wide shot when you're doing a video game, and you always have an extreme close up when you're doing a video game. So your voice has to match it accordingly. Your marks become very, very specific. because you can't walk through a wall. You have to make sure you don't cross this boundary that's not really there. So it's like theater meets film. And so that's obviously a lot different than we're doing an actual film where there's 1 or 2 cameras set up on tripods or sticks, as they call it. And then you're going to do multiple takes. And if you flub a line, you can just pause right in the middle of that take and get back to it. Video game, you can't do that. You got to be word perfect. Everything has to be seamless. So it involves a lot more rehearsal, and it becomes theater that way. So two totally different processes, but I know that TV and film, they're leaning a lot more into bringing those fantastical elements of technology that video game uses all the time.
Like I'm watching the Halo again. I'm watching the Halo show. I've never played Halo before, but I find it very intriguing, right? Like the world that it seems like I've missed out on this big, huge world that's pretty cool. Like in the Halo, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's doing its job. It's getting me interested. I wonder if Call of Duty could ever do that, like a show, Call of Duty show.
It would be interesting considering that they've been doing this for over a decade. Like, what stories would they adapt and make live action? But speaking about that, like, I want to know, what was your very first Call of Duty that you played, and what was your favorite one that out of all of them that you've played as well?
Damn, there's so many of them.
Yeah, there's so many. It's impressive as hell, right?
Yeah,
it's impressive.
That was Call of Duty is one of the first games I ever played. Like, you know what I mean? As anything, I went over a friend's house and, like, you know, COD as they call it would be there, right?
Yeah,
and
COD.
Yeah, it's been a staple of gaming for so long.
Ubiquitous. It's I always make the joke that the Call of Duty franchise to video games is like the Star Wars to films. Like everyone knows what it is, even if you don't play it or you don't watch it. Everyone knows. It's like it's that big. It's been around that long, and it's that popular. So the first game that I vividly remember ever playing through was literally Call of Duty Modern Warfare, like 2007 or whatever it was. And then I went on to the sequel and the other ones, and I went back and replayed those 3 when I got hired for the Modern Warfare reboot that we were doing. And then, of course, I tried Infinity Warfare on for size and stuff like that. But I vividly remember, the original trilogy, and those were probably the first Call of Duty games that I played, proper back in the day.
Those were definitely amazing, especially the storytelling. I know Modern Warfare 2 has one of the most crazy endings in the franchise, and it just makes every fan like, oh. So, of course, when it rebooted, everyone, especially me, was like, oh, what? Please don't tell me it's going to make us go through an emotional roller coaster like that. And then, of course, by the end of this game, it's like, oh, the explosion. Oh, man.
Yeah. But that was, I think, one of the sweetest things about our Modern Warfare game for people that played the campaign. Like, the feedback was amazing. Like, people really fell in love with my Alex character and the Farah character. They just fell in love with that dynamic. And when, Alex does the ultimate sacrifice and detonates a chemical factory, and you don't see him come out, and Farah rides away on the chopper. Right. People literally cry, and I get people all the time having those emotional feels. And probably not the emotional feels they had when what's his name betrays Ghost and Shepard, yeah. I mean, that was effing brutal. I remember playing that for the first time. I'm like, you got me, wait, what? And then he sets him on fire, So it's a different kind of emotional feels because they really got attached to Alex and Farah and the way that they worked and played together throughout that whole campaign. So I think it made it that much sweeter when Alex returned for Warzone in season 3 and had the prosthetic leg. So it was really cool.
Wait.
More than any other
How did they set it up?
The Alex character took them on an emotional journey in that way with the Alex and Farah storyline. So it was really cool to see.
Yeah.
How'd they set it up with a did you say a post credit?
It was what it was is for Warzone season 3, because like every battle royale they have a season, like they kind of launch the next version or kind of update it. Okay. So in this one they had a cinematic and it kind of brought back his character, and it was wild. It was wild dope. For sure.
See, I'm telling you, the lines are blurring.
A little bit of trivia on that is when I went in to film that intro for season 3, that little cinematic, which is only about a minute and a half long.
Yeah.
The script that I had, again, we don't talk a lot. Ghost is doing his thing, killing hostiles with a knife, and then he gets in a bad spot, and then all of a sudden the sniper rifle takes out somebody that was going to stab him, and then Alex stands up, and there he is. He saved Ghost's life with a sniper rifle, and Ghost is shocked. It's like, thought you were dead, and all this. So it's a little bit of dialogue exchange, and Let's Get Evil was supposed to be Ghost's line, but Taylor Kurosaki, who I love, was our director, and he said, I want to give that line to Alex. You know, I want that to be his new call, his tagline and stuff like that. So that's been a lot of fun. You know, every tweet and every, you know, Instagram post that I make, it's the little evil emoji, you know, with the little
the devil,
and stuff. And I'm like, you get it. You get it if you get it, you know, kind of thing. So that was a fun bit of trivia and a fun thing that paid off in the long term that I didn't think much on the day. I'm like, yeah, great, I'll say that line.
Yeah, and it continues the story after the campaign, which I think it's really cool because they've been doing that same thing with every season of Warzone. Like at the new season, they have a cinematic which continues the story, which is very unique. And it's kind of like a little kind of 1 minute story expansion to keep players interested. And if you haven't played the campaign, it gets them to play the campaign. So I bet after all that, even season 2 and 1, how many people went back and said, oh, who are these characters, and went and played the campaign? Just if like they're multiplayer fans.
A lot of the feedback that I get online is, you know, because you can buy the operator skins at certain points during, you know, I don't know what season it was, but they introduced like a Sidewinder, you know, Deathstalker pack for Alex that has a whole different outfit and everything else, different guns and bells and whistles, and then they go away apparently. And some of the saddest stuff I get on Twitter and everything else is like the players who find out about Alex later. And they're like, I can't get any of his skins. Like, how do I get his skins? Like, I'm so sad that I missed season 3. And I'm like, oh my God, that's heartbreaking. Trust me, I don't have that kind of juice to get you those skins.
I can't send you the skins via email.
I can't get you a redeem code.
What's your email? I'll send them right over.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but since I know you stream on Twitch as well and play Warzone, I don't know when the last time you played is, but how do you feel about hackers and the new anti-cheat in Warzone?
I mean, I don't play as much as I'd like. You know, I appreciate people who have to put in the 30 or 40 hours a week to get as good as they do to slaughter me so easily. But I can't do that. And anytime I do play, I do try to stream. So it's a fun experience for everyone. And I get to bring people into the fold. Right. You know, the hackers and cheater stuff has never really bothered me because I don't play enough. That's not the reason why I don't win or get killed so fast. I do it because I'm like an average player at best. So it hasn't affected my experience as much as everyone else, but I understand if you're trying to be competitive, if you're doing it, you know, for any of the other reasons, and you're putting in the time to level up the guns and grinding and everything else too. Like, I get that that's super frustrating. Like, come on, like who's even doing that? You know, it's just, but at the same time, I know that they're trying to crack down on it and doing a job. But you know, it's like trying to keep up with the technology. It's like antivirus software has to work backwards from like, well, what's the new dangerous virus? Now we have to have a solution, you know, like, oh my God, there's coronavirus. Now we have to come up with a vaccine. So like, you don't know you need it until you need it. Right. So it's a catch up game and it's hard to stay on top of. So I think they're doing a good job and trying to do the best that they can. And I get why it's frustrating for everyone else, but I'm just not nearly good enough, and I don't get a chance to play as much to really have my experience affected by hackers. I mean, I could blame everything on hackers, but everyone would know I'm lying.
That's the easy thing. Like,
I thought you guys
the lag or the hacking. You know,
is it bad that I thought you guys were talking about like characters? Like literally, so you were literally talking about hackers and cheaters.
because there's a program that people use, like engine owning, that
I was gonna say, how do you
aimbot and stuff like that?
Because like back in the day, cheat codes were like up, down, over, like that was programmed into the game so you could like trick it, right? So someone put that in there. That wasn't just software that you made to hack into the game. Those were cheat codes like that were put into the game.
To find. Thought through.
Yeah, but nowadays, so you're saying like people hack into these games and what, steal?
Well, they don't steal. It's more like they give themselves a certain advantage. Like the most notable one is obviously aimbot, which basically means if there's someone in your vicinity and you can see like a little box around their character and they just lock on and you just take them out easily. That's like thing in Warzone, but they've been cracking down on it, which is really good with this new anti-cheat. But
well, that's good to know.
It's a
professional gaming is a thing now. So
you
need to have more regulations and whatever. I mean, people literally are becoming wealthy from gaming now. And-
500,000 tournaments,
And all of their
50,000.
mothers are rolling over because of it.
Yeah, right. I remember
told
having those
us.
conversations when I had
Video
my
games will
Nintendo.
melt your brain.
My Nintendo, was such a big deal, and my parents just would not get me one for years, and they saw no value in it. And I mean, it's just really fun because now I look at my life so many years later from my childhood, and I've always loved games. And there was, you couldn't make a living doing games. That's insane. Now people make incredible figures doing what they love to do, and their YouTube channels and Twitch channels and sponsorships.
Oh,
People are
yeah.
going to college for free on scholarships to join esports team. Like, it's incredible, and I got to be an actor and I got to be in a video game, and now I get to enjoy the hell out of playing it, and doing it on Twitch. And so it's been really full circle because back in the day, it'll rot your brain, right?
Right.
That's
Exactly.
Oh
it.
yeah.
That's all
Now
anyone had to
it's a
say
huge
about that. But now
billion-dollar
it's
industry.
kind of like it's lucrative, and now kids want to be professional gamers and streamers, and
I look up
the
to them.
opportunity to do that is there. It's
Yeah.
really, really cool thing.
Yeah.
What cannot thank you enough for coming back and talking. I know you have a busy schedule. So where can people find you on? I have everything in the description, but where can people find you on social media if they haven't already?
Yeah, I'm on the big three. So Facebook at Chad Michael Collins, Instagram and Twitter is at Collins Chad M. I created a TikTok account that I don't upkeep very well and I haven't had a chance to play with very much. So
I've been
also
doing-
at
I've been doing the
that's also
same.
at Collins Chad M.
A lot of people are like, so TikTok is different. And I think it's a good thing for like guys like you, like celebrity, personalities, as I like to say, not
It's
celebrities.
a different animal, and it allows you to do different fun things, and I get why people
Like Will
love
Smith.
it, but you can only
It's
handle
like
so many
Vine,
social
but
media
updated
platforms.
into the.
Yeah. Like Will
You
Smith.
can only do so much.
Yeah, Jack Black I see on there a lot. Like
Yeah.
they're making they're filling in the gaps of their career, like movie to movie. Oh, this is what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
content creation, and streaming and everything else. I mean, I only went to streaming because there was a pandemic and there was no work. So I was like, well, I'll see what this is about.
right.
And it's been a lot of fun. And I don't do it as often as I'd like, but it's been a blast. And I've met wonderful people and brought people together through that, which is just such a pleasure. So, on Twitch, I'm at Chad Michael Collins, and I got to plug one of my big loves, which is Dungeons and Dragons. I play all the time. And
Really?
I've assembled a really great group of people, including a lot of actors and performers, and we're going to do a Twitch live stream D&D game. The Die is Cast Gaming, so I believe that's just twitch.tv/Die is Cast Gaming. DIE is Cast Gaming. So hopefully in late April we'll get this up and
Awesome.
running for people, and they can see. I made an Echo 3-1 inspired medieval fantasy character
Dice.
for this campaign.
Awesome.
So less machine guns, more long sword and shield.
Yeah.
So hopefully people will.
That's
will
what I would-
dig that.
See, that's what I want to see you in next. We get a campaign for you to get some Marvel role or DC role, some superhero stuff. We got to get you in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you
Already.
could. I think you could thrive in those one of those films. So
I've got
Uh,
a backdrop here, but if I pulled this backdrop down, it would look very similar to yours, and maybe a ton more
Yeah.
in terms of comic book stuff all over the place. So
Yeah.
anytime they're ready and willing to have
Chad,
me,
Chad,
ready.
Hal Jordan, Michael Collins is saying, just checking out. No, man, thank you for coming. Black Ops, thank you for joining me as well.
Yeah.
And to everyone in the on the platform sphere, we'll call it. Have a good day.